Marlon Brando fathered 11 children, but few know that he lost 2 of them in the most tragic way imaginable. Marlon Brando's childhood was turbulent. His parents were heavy drinkers, and little Marlon often witnessed their struggle with addiction. His relationship with his father was particularly difficult. No matter how hard Marlon tried to impress his father, he always seemed to come up short. Brando's father often told him that he would never amount to anything. This deep resentment toward his father only fueled Brando's inner fire and drove him to leave home as a very young man. At first, Brando planned to join the army, but when that didn't work out, he chose a different path. At 18, he moved to New York City to pursue acting, the only thing he felt he could be good at. Brando was very serious about acting, so serious that his dedication sometimes annoyed critics and co-stars. He aimed for authenticity and naturalness, but often came off as difficult. This reputation would continue as his career developed. His breakthrough role came as Stanley Kowalski in the Broadway production of A Streetcar Named Desire. After arriving a few days late for his audition at Tennessee Williams' home, he fixed the house's electrical fuses and plumbing before finally performing his reading. Initially, Williams didn't expect much from this new actor. However, once Brando started acting, Williams was completely captivated. He later described the audition as the most magnificent reading he had ever seen. Brando not only excelled on stage, but also shined in the 1951 film adaptation, where his natural poise and screen presence stood out. His striking looks helped make him a household name, and his performance earned him an Academy Award nomination. With both talent and good looks, he quickly became one of Hollywood's most sought-after stars. Soon after filming A Streetcar Named Desire, Brando attended a party with Marilyn Monroe. When she spotted Brando, she couldn't resist an introduction. She tapped Brando on the shoulder, and when he turned around, he whacked her on the head with his elbow. Brando apologized over and over, saying it was an accident. Monroe, however, wasn't fazed at all and simply said, "There are no accidents." Brando immediately burst out laughing. This was the beginning of something special. Brando and Monroe started as friends, but he wanted more. In his autobiography, he recalled, "She invited me over, and it wasn't long before every soldier's dream came true." Their bond lasted until her death. Brando saw Monroe's vulnerability and emotional depth. Though their romance was on and off again throughout the years, they were close and often spoke for hours. She confided in him about her struggles, and her tragic death deeply affected him. Days before she died in 1962, Monroe invited Brando to dinner, but he was too busy. When the news broke of her apparent suicide, Brando was devastated. He didn't believe it, insisting she had seemed happy during their last conversation. Brando thought her death was either an accident or foul play. "I didn't sense any depression or self-destruction," he said about their final phone call. Losing Monroe was a heavy blow, but more heartbreak was to come. In 1954, Brando met Rita Moreno, and she was instantly captivated. She visited him on the set of Desiree, and their chemistry was undeniable. Moreno later wrote, "Just meeting him that first day sent my body temperature skyrocketing." Their romance was intense, but far from smooth. From the start, Moreno saw the red flags. Even as she fell for Brando, she knew their relationship would be turbulent. Brando was never the faithful type, and his 8-year relationship with Moreno didn't change that. He cheated on her constantly, both physically and emotionally, breaking her heart. Moreno desperately wanted Brando to marry her, but for some reason, he never wanted to make her his wife. Worse still, Brando married multiple times while continuing their affair. Whatever he did, Moreno just couldn't stay away. One day, Moreno found some lingerie that clearly did not belong to her. This time, she was out for revenge. The very next day, she got a call that surprised her and gave her an idea. It was the perfect opportunity to get back at Brando. Who was the caller? None other than Elvis Presley, and he was interested. She decided to accept Presley's advances, but only as a means to an end. She wanted Brando to feel exactly how he made her feel. But her date with Elvis did not inspire too much passion in Moreno. Compared to Brando, Elvis was unimpressive, and she called their time together amateur night. But her plan worked. When Brando found out, he was furious. Moreno, on the other hand, enjoyed watching him squirm. It was wonderful, she recalled. Despite their toxic dynamic, their passion for each other kept the affair going. In 1956, while still involved with Moreno, Brando married the beautiful Anna Kashfi. Sadly, just a year and a half later, they divorced, and the divorce was not amicable. Brando's biggest conflict with Anna Kashfi was over their son Christian. The custody battle dragged on for years, and by the time Brando won, Christian was already 13. But parenting proved harder than Brando expected. Despite his good intentions, his busy career kept him away, leaving Christian to be raised by nannies. In 1972, while Brando was filming in France, his ex-wife Anna Kashfi kidnapped Christian from school and smuggled him to Mexico. When the plan unraveled, her friends hid the boy, making it impossible to find him. Desperate, Brando hired private investigators and waited anxiously for his son's return. The investigators finally found Christian, but the ordeal had left scars. He was discovered in a tent, sick with pneumonia and terrified. Despite the trauma, Brando continued having children, and sadly, there were more tragedies ahead for him and his family. Even amid his family chaos, Brando had Rita Moreno by his side until everything fell apart. When Moreno became pregnant, Brando arranged for an abortion. Tragically, Rita Moreno's abortion went horribly wrong. The doctors completely botched the job, and soon after the procedure, Moreno started bleeding heavily. She had to be rushed to the hospital for emergency surgery. After this terrible event, Brando seemed more concerned about the money he'd spent than about Moreno's well-being. Still, Moreno could not end their relationship. Not long after, he broke her heart again. In 1962, while filming Mutiny on the Bounty, he fell for Tarita Terapia. But when he returned to Hollywood, he still wanted to see Moreno, unaware she had reached her breaking point. To Brando's shock, Moreno had attempted suicide by overdosing on pills. Fortunately, his assistant found her in time and doctors managed to save her life. After this close call, it was clear their relationship had to end. As passionate as they were, a therapist warned them to stay apart. They were a toxic mix. They went 2 years without any contact whatsoever, but their story wasn't over yet. In addition to his many romances, Brando also had one very close bromance. Marlon Brando and Wally Cox met when they were only 9 years old. Their parents were friends, and soon, these two youngsters formed an extremely close bond. In fact, their friendship lasted until an unforeseen tragedy tore them apart. As the boys grew up, their lives moved in sync. They both moved to New York, they both pursued acting, and though they seemed mismatched, they were kindred spirits. Brando was the brooding dramatist, Cox the lovable comedian. They could talk about anything and had many adventures. But their friendship had an undercurrent of jealousy, especially from Brando. Brando and Cox were close throughout Wally's 3 marriages, but Cox's wives often felt Brando's possessiveness. Cox's second wife even called Brando sulky and rude, convinced he saw her as an intruder. When Cox died suddenly of a heart attack, Brando was devastated. His widow asked Brando to pick up the ashes and he promised to scatter them along a favorite hiking trail. But years later, she learned he never did. She was shocked to read Brando's words in Time magazine. "Wally was like my brother. I can't tell you how much I miss and love that man. I have Wally's ashes in my house. I talk to him all the time. Even in death, Brando couldn't let go of his best friend." Rumors swirled that Brando and Cox had been more than friends, though those close to them denied it. But Brando himself never shied away from his fluid sexuality. He was ahead of his time, unbothered by judgment. In 1976, he said, "Like a large number of men, I too have had homosexual experiences, and I am not ashamed." His dalliances reportedly started in military school with a fellow cadet. As his biographer William Mann put it, he was utterly at ease with his fluid sexuality, disregarding the binaries of love and gender. After their breakup, Brando and Moreno moved on and married other people. But years later, Brando felt it was safe to reconnect. Their romance didn't reignite, but their friendship did. In 1968, he even cast her opposite him in The Night of the Following Day. But as soon as filming began, it was clear whatever they once had was still simmering beneath the surface. Looking back on the tough shoot, Moreno recalled a scene that didn't require much acting at all. She had to slap Brando, and she didn't hold back. She hit him with everything she had, but Brando wasn't one to back down. He slapped her right back, so hard she saw stars. That moment reopened an old wound, and she completely lost it. Moreno started screaming at Brando, completely unraveling on camera in an unscripted outburst. The director loved it and kept the cameras rolling. Years of pent-up emotion came pouring out, raw and real. It was cathartic for both of them, a moment they never forgot. Despite their messy history, Brando and Moreno stayed in touch. Moreno never truly stopped loving him. In her autobiography, she admitted that in his later years, Brando would call her, saying how much he still missed her. But their story took an even sadder turn. The last time they saw each other was in 2003. Moreno visited Brando while working on a project, and when it was time to say goodbye, she leaned in for a kiss. By then, Brando had struggled with obesity for years, and his large frame made the moment painfully awkward. Their fiery past felt like a distant memory. Brando's weight gain didn't happen overnight. He battled binge eating for years. To the world, there were two Brandos, the heartthrob of his youth and the older recluse he became. But even at the height of his fame, he had an insatiable appetite, sometimes going to ridiculous lengths for a snack. For years, Brando crash-dieted before shoots. His eating habits made life a nightmare for costume designers. Brando wasn't just indulging in food, he was living large. While filming Mutiny on the Bounty in Tahiti, he had planes flown in loaded with champagne, hams, and turkeys, all for his lavish parties. Brando loved Tahiti. He fell in love with the place so much that he bought a group of islands called Tetiaroa. Today, it's home to a luxury resort fittingly named the Brando. But despite his love for Tahiti, the film marked the start of a disappointing decade in his career. The 1950s were Brando's golden years. He racked up Oscar nominations for A Streetcar Named Desire, Viva Zapata, and Julius Caesar, finally winning Best Actor for On the Waterfront in 1955. However, Brando's career hit a rough patch in the 60s. But in 1972, a golden opportunity arrived, The Godfather. This was his big comeback, but true to form, Brando had conditions. One major demand: he refused to play Vito Corleone if Burt Reynolds was cast as Michael. He loathed Reynolds. In the end, Brando got his way, and in return, he delivered the performance of a lifetime. His portrayal of Vito Corleone won him his second Academy Award, but Brando didn't even show up to accept it. Instead, he sent activist Sachin Littlefeather to refuse the award and give a speech about Hollywood's treatment of Indigenous people, something Brando cared deeply about. Brando's feud with Burt Reynolds wasn't the only time he brought his personal feelings to work. One of Brando's longest-running feuds was with none other than Frank Sinatra, and it went all the way back to 1954. Brando had originally turned down On the Waterfront, and Sinatra was set to star. But when Brando changed his mind, he snatched the role back, leaving Sinatra fuming. From that moment on, Sinatra never let it go. He called Brando Mumbles and mocked his method acting as that method crap. When they were cast together in 1955's Guys and Dolls, the tension boiled over. During one scene, Brando kept messing up takes on purpose, forcing Sinatra to eat slice after slice of cheesecake. By the 9th take, Sinatra snapped, yelling, "How much cheesecake do you think I can eat?" Throughout the 1970s, Brando continued to struggle with his weight. By 1979, when he arrived on the set of Apocalypse Now, he was nearly 300 pounds and completely unprepared. He hadn't even read Heart of Darkness, the novella the film was based on, and had no idea who his character was. This led to constant clashes with director Francis Ford Coppola. Brando's lack of preparation slowed everything down. Coppola had to read the entire script to him, setting production back by a full week. And then there was another issue, his size. His character, Colonel Kurtz, was meant to be lean and wiry. To work around this, Brando dressed in black, and Coppola kept the camera angles tight, hiding him in the shadows. Ironically, this only enhanced the eerie presence of the character, making Kurtz even more haunting. In 1990, tragedy struck the Brando family in the most shocking way possible.
For exclusive perks like early access to new videos, priority replies to your comments, and to have your say on future content, consider becoming a Factinate member. On top of that, your support helps keep the channel going. Click the link in the description for more details.
Marlon Brando's son Christian shot and killed his sister Cheyenne's boyfriend right in the middle of Brando's living room. It all started when Christian and Cheyenne went out for dinner. That night, she confided in her brother, claiming that her boyfriend had been abusing her. Enraged and protective, Christian confronted Drolet later that evening, intending only to scare him. But the situation escalated. A struggle broke out, the gun went off, and Drolet was dead. Later, Christian discovered a devastating possibility. Cheyenne may have been lying about the abuse. Her mental health was already fragile, and as the trial loomed, she spiraled further. Meanwhile, Marlon Brando stood by his son, doing everything he could to help. Taking the stand in court, Brando gave an emotional testimony, even blaming himself, saying, "I think that perhaps I failed as a father." In the end, Christian pleaded guilty and was sentenced to 5 years in prison. But for Brando, the nightmare was far from over. His daughter, Cheyenne, never got to see her brother walk free. Struggling with the aftermath of the trial and losing custody of her son, she fell into a deep depression. Eventually, she made a heartbreaking decision. She took her own life at her mother's home. For Brando, this loss was utterly unbearable. By 2004, Brando's health had deteriorated beyond repair. He battled diabetes, liver cancer, and congestive heart failure. On July 1st, 2004, he passed away. After he passed, Brando had one final controversial wish. He had held onto the ashes of his lifelong best friend Wally Cox for years. After he passed, his family honored his request, scattering his ashes alongside those of Cox and another close friend, Sam Gilman, in both Tahiti and Death Valley. He once said, If Wally had been a woman, I would have married him, and we would have lived happily ever after. If you enjoyed this Factinate video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more incredible stories. Want to say in who we cover next? Join our membership program through the link in the description for exclusive perks. Your support means everything to us. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.